It's time for another Two Women Talking. It is me, Tomboy, Leanna Kersner, here with song WX and Girly Girl, and author of Calidus Chronicles Volume 1, available on Amazon. I am going to shamelessly promote the snot out of that. I was reading that again last night.
It's also on Barnes & Noble now.
Oh, that's right. It's also on Barnes & Noble now. I'm at the dinner.
Yes.
Dinner where it's all like everybody moving around and everybody checking each other out. And that's on topic. I swear, guys, I'm not just promoting Song's book because this is another request. Another listener paid to request a topic, and it worked out serendipitously because it tied into something we wanted to talk about already. We're going to talk about authenticity in female characters. And we are going, as usual, we don't quite know where this is going to go, but we know we want to deal with season 3 of The Mandalorian because we were, I think we were disappointed for different reasons that sort of intersected, and it all landed on just Bo-Katan Kryze does not feel like a character that has the extensive backstory from Clone Wars and Rebels.
Oh, because where's the regret over her sister?
Yeah, okay, let's stick a pin in that because I just realized we didn't define authentic. Yes. And I think that's really important. So I'll let you go first. What does an authentic character mean to you?
I mean, I've been thinking about this, and obviously there's going to be a bit of a bias of like, does this character feel real to me? And some of that is going to be, do I relate to this character? But it's also like, does this character actually in this case with feminine characters does this character actually feel like a realistic woman?
Right. Yeah.
And is that portrayed in a positive way? Because it's, we see, we've talked about Sex and the City, and I'm sure I could go off about the latest season of Mrs. Maisel if we get there. Yeah. But it's these characters are hot messes. And even with She-Hulk, it's the character is a hot mess, which is realistic, but that doesn't mean I like it.
Right. And so, we're not going to focus on whether we like a given character or not. It's whether or not the character feels real. Okay. Yeah. I think one
way I'd also define it is this positive feminine energy.
Right.
Yeah. Which is very subjective, and it's very much.
But that's where I think our approaches, our definitions overlap, because to me, the idea of an authentic female character, obviously in sci-fi, it's not going to be real world experiences, right? Like when we do fantasy, we do sci-fi, we have to extrapolate some. This is not our world. But does it feel like this is a person that is well-rounded, consistent, feels like they could exist, and is just a character, not trying to make a point about what should be or modeling some ideal behavior for women?
Does their past and does their motives line up with their actions?
Yeah. Can you draw a line? Can you be like, okay, I see where that's coming from, especially if it's challenging or I don't agree. I mean, Yennefer from the Witcher video games, The Witcher 3 is a shining example of a character that does some very challenging things, to say the least. But I'll be damned if I wasn't able to go, oh my God, she's gonna, yep, she did. The character was so well laid out that even when she did stuff that I'm like, why? I knew why, right? The way the character was portrayed, the way she responded to things, her particular idea of what adoptive motherhood meant, it was all very consistent and all very thought out. And we'll get to She-Hulk in a bit, because I'm actually a split decision On that one, there's a thing right at the end where I think they didn't stick the landing on authenticity. But maybe we should just go quickly through the characters we do find authentic. So when we get to the whole discussion of Bo-Katan, it's not, because I know we've already gotten it. You just hate her. You just this. You just don't want diversity. You just and the fact that people say to me, you just don't want strong women in entertainment. It's
Oh my
like,
God.
you know, my knee-jerk reaction is, oh, do fuck off. Like, have you seen my content? But people are gonna do it.
And it's like, I've talked about, I'm tired of the sword woman trope. I'm tired of the badass woman, just because it's like, it's I recently tried to reread Tamara Pierce's books.
Yeah, you were
And
mentioning that.
few of them, and they're still well written, but I'm like, I'm just tired of this trope. I want a character a female character who is embracing the power of femininity and doesn't feel the need to put on pants and doesn't feel the need to complain about skirts. And
I think that in order for the sword woman to be valid, in order for the tomboy to be valid, the girly girl must also be valid. This is the whole point of two women talking. Right?
And see, part of where I was going with that point is it's like, it's not so much in volume 1 of Calidus Chronicles, but it's like I have a very large cast. And so volume 1, you've seen a bunch of the feminine characters like Carolyn and Runa.
They're very different. They're all very, very different.
Yeah. But I mean, you've already met Catherine.
Yes.
Who, she's a walking pile of neuroses, but she's also a soldier.
Right.
In semi-retirement. So it's like I'm working on volume 2 again, and I'm at the point where I'm about to start introducing a bunch of female sword women.
You know what I really enjoyed in the scene I'm reading right now? Not to totally kiss your ass, but I'm going to totally kiss your ass because it's true. The big scene where the woman comes down dripping in gold and all the other women who are, because I mean, the ball, like, this is a full contact sport, this scene, right? Yes. And again, this isn't the real world, it's the world that you have set up. And in that world, the gladiator arena for women is the ball. And I mean, you've juxtaposed literal gladiators with this ball. I see you. But the women who are, I mean, every woman's essentially in competition in this place, except for the women who are just like, nope, not doing it. You don't show it. You don't tell it, you show it. Whereas, if a woman's, done her time and now she's got a family, she just doesn't show up. Like, it's like, no, I'm home with my baby. Don't want to do it. No. And this woman, does it begin? No, it doesn't begin with an N. She didn't show up. What the heck is her name?
I think you're talking about Lucilla.
Lucilla, that's right. Yes. And she comes down and it's this big thing. And even though it's competitive and she's a lot, you make it clear that the other, game respects game. The other women actually respect the fact that she is just,
didn't respect her so much, I might hate her.
That's right. That's the line. If I didn't respect her so much, I might hate her. I loved that line.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, this is authentic to this world. It's not our world. That very rarely happens in our world. But in that world where game knows game, it made absolute sense to me. So I used Calidus Chronicles Volume 1 to explain what I thought about authenticity. It doesn't have to be something I relate to. It just has to make sense to me in the way the author set it up. And that's what I'm not getting in a lot of other fantasy, in a lot of other sci-fi. I mean, if we look at Galadriel in the Lord of the Rings films versus Galadriel, and I'm not doing the fancy pronunciation. I feel stupid every time I do it. Those poor actors. But we look at her at Rings of Power. Kate Blanchett is not in the film very much, but she inhabits the character. Galadriel in the show is, well, a bunch of stuff happened because it has to, because who is Sauron? Because girl power. Oh, she was so misunderstood. I'm like, what am I supposed to think about this younger Galadriel? It's all over the place.
And what I found so frustrating with that is, according to the Silmarillion, is Galadriel was the only one who didn't trust Sauron when he came in disguise.
Who was not fooled.
And
now she's fooled.
Yeah, and that kind of thing, it's very much female intuition, isn't it? Where it's part of it is just who she is, as in wisdom and discernment. But that is still, in my opinion, a very feminine trait. And so when you take that away from her, you've deprived her of something feminine. And
which
what was the
Tolkien would
point?
not have been down with.
No.
I mean, let's face it, in terms of authorial intent, that is shitting on the source.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, Tolkien would not approve of anything in that show.
No, and it's so weird because this is the one, the heir who shit on the Peter Jackson films okayed, probably because they gave him a shit ton of money.
Yeah.
And they changed things in the Jackson films, especially in The Hobbit. But I thought the soul of the thing was intact. And again, they really changed Arwen and they really changed Eowyn. And at first, I mean, when I saw that first still of Liv Tyler with the sword, and I love Liv Tyler, so I was really conflicted, but I first saw her with the sword raised and yada yada. I'm like, what are they doing? Like, this is not Arwen.
And I mean, even back then, I think there was a push for the women to play a bigger role in the story. Because someone joked, yeah, let's have her rescue Frodo instead of just, oh, I'm going to sit home and sew you a banner.
And okay, you have to modernize for the current audience, but the Arwen, and then it turns out they changed Aragorn and they changed Eowyn, and it's the same characters, but they're telling a story with a very, very different message. They didn't even do the garden scene with Faramir and Eowyn, and I was so bummed with that because to me, Eowyn was really validating as a kid. Because
I can see that.
Yeah, because she was mistaken for a man, and there was all this stuff, and Aragorn rejected her for being not feminine enough, essentially, and then she finds this really great guy in Faramir, and that, I mean, I'm paraphrasing a lot when I talk about the garden scene, but it's her going, I really like you. And he's like, I'm never going to be king, right? She's like, yes, I don't care. And he's like, just to be clear, I'm never going to be king, right? Yes, Faramir, I don't care. It was really cute that way. And that got lost when they didn't create Arwen and Eowyn as sort of, Tolkien's treatise on Eowyn was, look, this is what war does to women. It's such a tragedy that they act like men. And all right, dude, we don't have to agree on everything, right? And that's what I think got missing in the authenticity angle with Bo-Katan and the Mandalorian. Now, hear me out, guys, okay? Like, guys and gals, hear me out. As somebody who is that kind of chick, right? It's hard. And in Star Wars, even though it's long, long ago in a galaxy far, far away, you see Princess Leia, which is the same time frame, right? Because Mandalorian takes place after Return of the Jedi.
Yeah. So I think it's 5 years later.
Yeah. You see Leia getting pushback from men in the show. So we already have an establishment that she's brassy and we love her for it, but the men of her world don't necessarily love her for it. It's like a taming of the shrew thing with her and Han Solo. And fine, that works. They're two flawed people. And Leia is portrayed as a lot of different things at a time. And that when you are a lot, as Carrie Fisher was, rest in peace, as I am, you take shit. And so one of the problems, I'll start off, is that female leadership in Star Wars and how people feel about it in that place, in that long, long ago galaxy far, far away, has been previously established in the films. And we don't see Bo-Katan Kryze getting any of the pushback. Even Princess Leia does. Never mind the pushback that would make sense based on the circumstances they lay out, even within the show, even if we ignore all the stuff from Rebels and Clone Wars, because that'll take a lot to unpack, because a lot of people, an ongoing problem with The Mandalorian is people didn't even see Book of Boba Fett. I had multiple people say to me, why is Grogu back? So I don't know what they were thinking with this, but, you know, we've got someone who in season 2 is a less observant member. Like, she's part of a less observant or radical sect of Mandalorians. Now, people who are, you know, Clone Wars watchers know what the Death Watch is and know that there are different types, but, you know, people who just met her on The Mandalorian don't know that. So she is sort of a moderate follower of the way. And then, you know, Din and the Armorer and the others that we know from previous seasons, they are a much more extreme followers of the way. You know, they have to go through this horribly dangerous thing to reclaim their status, and then all of a sudden she's leading everything. You know, you grew up in a religious society. You know that just because somebody lets somebody back in, you're not leading things the next day. It is a very gradual process.
And like, okay, so the episode, I don't remember which one it was, but where Paz, oh God, I forget his name.
Spoilers, everybody. Yeah. There will be spoilers.
Yeah. Sorry. So the big Mandalorian.
The guy with the Gatling gun and the kid.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the one where his kid got captured or swept up by the pterodactyl looking thing.
That was when it really started to break for me. Yeah.
Yeah. In that case, they were using her ship.
Okay.
So her taking point on the mission, and plus she was the one who she took her ship out. She did the reconnaissance. She came back and said, here's the situation. So for me, her taking point on that mission, that made sense. It's like, okay.
It didn't make sense to me just because, okay, it's your ship, but you have to do for the group. There's a lot of collectivism in, I mean, Filoni is so broken Mandalorian world building at this point. You know, I want to really like Dave Filoni, but I got to criticize where I think it's warranted. Is this a group that is wary of outsiders so much so that, you know, Mr. Kim shows up? Sorry, people don't know the character's name, so when I say his name, they go, "Oh, the guy from Kim's Convenience." Yes, and Paul's amazing. So
okay, so here's my theory.
Yeah.
With all of that, I think part of why he came back in such a big way this season, I think
because he's replacing. Authentic.
Well, more than that, I think he's replacing Gina Carano.
Oh, he definitely. I think that the playing up Bo-Katan and playing up, I'm blanking on his name now. But playing up Mr. Kim, I think that is definitely filling a hole left by Gina Carano. Because let's face it, whenever he shows up on screen, you're happy. Whenever Carl Weathers shows up on screen, you're happy. Whenever the mechanic lady shows up on screen, everybody's like, please give her a fucking show. right? Like she's so good because she does have almost that, like she doesn't spend a lot of time around people. And
I don't think
there's
she
an
needs
authentic character.
think she needs a full series,
Oh,
but I would love to see a series of like 5-minute shorts
see,
of just her getting up to shenanigans on Tatooine.
I would love a sitcom, almost like well, like Kim's Convenience had the convenience store. It's the various people
Mhm.
that come through with broken ships. And so,
Yeah.
like you said, it's that day-to-day life
Mhm.
in the Star Wars universe. That's what I'd like to see with that. But you believe she's a little bit, not totally well socialized because she hangs around machines more than people. Carson
She
Teva is Paul Lee's character on The Mandalorian. I just looked it up.
Carson
So we'll
Teva.
go Carson
Yeah.
Teva from now on.
And I will say, Carl Weathers, I will always know him as Apollo Creed.
Yeah,
So
but
like
you know what? He's so different on Mandalorian than he is as Apollo Creed
true,
that
I didn't even recognize him at
yeah.
first, but once he started showing up with like the cape
Yeah.
in this
Oh,
season, I'm like, oh, there you are, Apollo.
there's an example, and I give this to Giancarlo Esposito with Moff Gideon. Is Moff Gideon a good character? No. On paper, the character is terrible, no good, very bad. And I think Giancarlo Esposito knew that. He wanted to be in Star Wars. He sold it. He knew that that character wasn't going to be, inside the actor's studio method acting. It was going to be camp. And
and
he
he
went with camp.
and here's my thing with that is, especially the last couple episodes of this season, and I've talked about this on Twitter, he had such edgy, no one would play with me on the playground.
Yeah.
So now
Yeah.
I'm going to steal all their toys and I'm going to be so much cooler. And you know
Yeah.
what? He pulled it off way better than Kylo Ren.
Oh, yeah. I mean, but there's a guy who understood the assignment, right? Compared to what Katie Sackhoff did with that character. Now, I have to declare two biases here. Actually, three. One, Bo-Katan in that depiction reminds me of the woman who's stalking me. The crazy look in her eyes, that particular tint of hair, the whole thing, me, just walking in and wanting to jump the line. But it is that wild-eyed look. And I don't know if that's the performance or the side effects of the digital fucking with her face that they've done, because they've done some weird digital smoothing on Katie Sackhoff's face. And the minute you start mucking with someone to de-age a character who's supposed to be mid-50s at the lowest, you start going, wait a minute. Like, to me, I start bouncing off of it. And I was prepared to accept the whole, well, Mandalorians age slower. But then they show the people who fought with her back in the Mandalorian Civil War, and they look way older than her. And
men are allowed to look older.
well, and that's the problem. For me, it's not that they decided to if they made everybody equally perfected, right? Because the Thor movies, like, let's face it, every pore is smoothed out of those actors. It's so you can tell when you go and watch Tessa Thompson in the Creed movies versus Tessa Thompson as Valkyrie. Like, they're doing a lot. I mean, they boosted Natalie Portman, but they're boosting Chris Hemsworth, and I don't know what they're doing with Tom Hiddleston's eyebrows. I still can't figure that out. But those are not his actual eyebrows. They're weird little black caterpillars on his forehead, and he still makes it work. But everybody's being treated equally, right? Whereas Pedro Pascal is always perspiring and his hair is tousled when he takes that helmet off. And her hair didn't even have a hair out of place until the final episode. And I was like, every time it happened, I'm like, what the fuck? They even made her hair longer than it was in season 2. And I've had that haircut. It's very close to the way I had my hair for Boss Fight because of all the wigs.
Uh-huh.
And so I know that if it's, I mean, the Mandalorian helmet cuts off basically at jawline.
Yeah.
Don't have much more play because if it hits your shoulders, it'll pop up when you turn your head in the slightest. So if her hair is sitting below her jawline, the minute it's smushed down in the slightest, it's going to stick out under the helmet.
Yeah. And it's not like she can adjust it.
No, and they never showed anything that if they'd even showed that hairband kind
Uh-huh.
of like nanotechnology swooped her hair up or so, and that's why, give me something. And that's the authenticity point, right? I don't need it to be realistic. Just allow me to suspend disbelief in a
Yeah.
way that doesn't make me feel like you're saying take it and like it. Don't complain, we're including you. See?
And I mean, what you're describing is my exact feeling towards the sequel trilogy, where it's like they, I never felt excluded from Star Wars. I found it when I was 6 in 1997, 96, 97. And it wasn't until I got the sequel where they're like, see, we're including you. And I'm like, I had Leia, I had Padme, I had Mara Jade. No, still not over it.
Well,
I had all these things, and now I've described it as it's like they took away my steak dinner with the EU. They gave me gruel. Said, oh, but you're supposed to like this better
right.
because it's you. And it's like, well, that's offensive.
Yeah, and let's talk about the Padme Satin connection. Now, this is going to be really confusing for people because they're bringing Sabine Wren into Ahsoka. We're not talking about her. We're talking about Satine. Satine Kryze, Bo-Katan's sister from Clone Wars.
Okay, so the way I remember the Satine name is because she's Obi-Wan's love interest in Clone Wars.
Moulin Rouge.
Moulin Rouge, yes.
I do the same thing because Nicole Kidman was named Satine in Moulin Rouge, co-starring Ewan McGregor. That's so funny. That was a movie that I was, oh my God, she's so like you. She's so like you. You have to see Moulin Rouge. And I looked at it like, what the fuck? Yeah. Yeah. So many people said, you have to see it. She's just like you. I'm like, the shit you on. Like, but people do that to me all the time. They're like, you should like her. Penny from Big Bang Theory. So many people were angry at me that I didn't like Penny. Oh, yeah. Yeah. The you're supposed to like this, why don't you like this phenomenon is very, very real with me. And that's why with Satine and Padme, what I liked about that is Leia was sort of the beginning, but it was the 70s. So what was considered a beauty standard for women in the 1970s is not what it is now.
No.
The look was significantly more natural.
Yeah.
And so we have to keep that in mind. But Leia, yes, she used a blaster, but she was first and foremost trained to be a diplomat.
And she was the youngest senator in history.
Yeah.
Ironically, right before her, the youngest senator in history was, oh wait, her mother.
Right.
Because Padme became a senator at 18, 19, and Leia became one at 15.
Which, okay, they've made it very clear that Star Wars is now all about family dynasties. So there's a, they can justify that, okay. But what I liked about Padme is that her weapons were primarily words and the ability to move things through the Imperial Senate. Yeah. And Satine was the same way. Satine was not a type of character I immediately like, but she grew on me so much in Clone Wars.
The thing about Padme is that while she does use diplomacy, she has serious thrill issues.
Yeah, well.
And like when you look at the trilogy from that perspective, in that she has thrill, everything makes sense. Her relationship with Anakin suddenly makes a whole lot more sense. And I'm going to apologize that my voice is getting rough. I've been sick for the past 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So,
well, hopefully it holds. But
I can feel it.
Satine, what I took, and let's make sure we're on the same page here. What I took from the tragic story of Satine and Bo-Katan in The Mandalorian was, it was like, two sisters, one chose violence, one wanted to take the Mandalorians away from their violent past. And when Satine was murdered by Darth Maul, partially because Bo-Katan, pumped up. Bo-Katan was working with Count Dooku, and that was fine, but she didn't trust Darth Maul. It's a kid's show. I didn't think too hard about it at the time, but now that it's on The Mandalorian, now I am thinking all the thoughts. But I thought Satine was actually right, because the minute Satine wasn't around anymore because Darth Maul killed her, Mandalore fell. It was a tragedy. Bo-Katan made bad choices. Right? You agree?
Yes.
Okay. So Satine was right. Violence is bad. Okay. This is the message we're supposed to take from that. Where is any wisdom on Bo-Katan's part based on, let's be real, she got her sister killed? Her actions directly led to her sister's assassination.
Yeah. And it's like, we had that scene where she's talking about, Mandalore fell. I went to negotiate with Gideon. I gave him the dark saber to try and save everyone. And it's like, that's nice. So can we talk about your sister?
Yeah. Can we talk about the consequences of your actions?
Yeah. And it's like, it doesn't even have to be talking to a group, but just to Din.
In the performance, just show some hesitation somewhere, please. I mean, God, in that world.
Not even Din. It's a conversation she should have had with the armorer.
Something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Something that she's not sure, because she's not a zealot. They already established that she doesn't believe she's, destined to rule Mandalore because she saw a magical dinosaur. She should have some doubts. She's not a religious zealot. What the hell? It just felt like they were on their back foot, and I don't know. I keep trying to find, where did this go wrong? And I think it broke down both in the characterization and the performance. Katie Sackhoff was more interested in matching the voice that she did in the Clone Wars than actually giving a live action performance with more nuance.
And that's part of why I think casting Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka, and I always kind of suspected that stung a bit for the Ahsoka actress, because she's made Star Wars and playing Ahsoka like her entire career at this point.
Yeah.
She has a book called Everyday Star Wars that's for sale at the Disney parks. Lifestyle Star Wars, because that's what we need.
Right. Yeah.
But it's using the same actress. It doesn't give a lot of room for things to be different. But even more than that, what does Bo-Katan want? Like,
she wants to be in charge.
She wants to be in charge, but it's, I remember seeing a joke post a while back that was Din becoming Mandalore and he's convinced that like he's gonna fail and they're gonna oust him in like a day and a half, but he's going around just using the best of his dad skills to try and
Right.
keep people in line.
Right.
And everyone's like, no, you're great, keep it up. But one of the jokes in the post was, will being put on timeout make Bo-Katan behave? Stick around and find out. And I'm like, I want to see that. I want to see Din put Bo-Katan. And this
Oh,
was like after season 2 when he first got the Darksaber and stuff.
yeah.
And I'm like, I'd watch that. Please put her on timeout. She needs it.
That speech about I will follow you. These are fucking mercenaries. They don't just fall into line. They think on their feet. They're ragtag. They're chaotic good characters. They're not. I don't like. They destroyed so many character points. I don't know what I'm supposed to believe about this group anymore.
With Din, I do find it kind of believable because he has been raised to take orders in a way, because that is he grew up in a cult.
But his journey to that point was breaking free of that, because that's why he took off his helmet for Grogu.
Uh-huh.
He was starting to separate from the religious zealotry. And just as a point of privilege, why did Disney in this day and age, with everything that's going on with them and DeSantis in Florida, think it was a good idea to tell a story where the religious zealots who win through violence were the good guys?
Honestly, I think we'll never know, but I have a feeling that Gina Carano's firing ended
just
up
through everything.
Yeah, because she weren't they like already working on her show? I don't think it was Marshals of the New Republic.
I
it was
think
something like
it
that.
was that, but it wasn't the Mandalorian. Like the Mandalorian, the stories are so simple. It's not hard to do a good job with a Mandalorian episode, right? Go into
Well,
town, problem to solve problem. Grogu is cute.
Well, here's the thing, and I've seen this now with Book of Boba Fett and what they're doing with this season. It reminds me a lot of how I write Calidus, where
Okay.
instead of just a novel, it is these short stories.
That's right.
So I can bounce between characters, I can bounce between places, and I don't have to follow a strict rise and fall structure. I can bounce around a bit and
that's right.
Establish things.
Yeah.
And so I think I see what they're trying to do. And
well, up until this season that went out the window, now it's part of this lengthy extended canon.
Yeah, and apparently Dave Filoni there might be another season of Book of Boba Fett. We'll see if Tamara Morrison will work with them, because he's been a bit vocal that he wasn't happy.
Yeah.
And I don't blame him at all. But so it was supposed to be like another season of Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka, Mandalorian, and then there's going to be a movie that brings it all together.
Well, the Rey movie, isn't it?
No, that's a different trilogy.
Oh, good Lord.
Yeah, there's supposed to be just a Filoni movie that wraps up the story of the Mandalorian verse, which is just...
Oh, that's a bad idea.
Yeah. Now, the theory is that it's actually going to be something of an Heir to the Empire retelling.
Of course.
So
you wipe out extended canon just to make everybody upset so that they cheer when you bring it back. That's not abusive at all.
Well, I know, right? But there's a point where in this season where we saw the Star Destroyer with red paint on it.
Yeah.
And I'd already started seeing this talk about, this might be leading to an Heir to the Empire retelling. Yeah. And so I saw the Star Destroyer painted red, and I perked up and I'm like, are we gonna get to see Talon Card? Like, even if we don't get Mara, it would still be cool to see Talon Card. And then I saw that no, it's the Mandalorian Mythosaur skull. So no, we're not going to get Talon.
Now they're bringing in Thrawn, and they actually dropped the words "heir to the Empire." And I'm like, this.
Why do you hate me?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Why do you torture me like this?
And okay, if this is the problem right now, and why this ties into the whole authenticity question. Who is Star Wars for now? Because it's not for me, because they insulted my intelligence, making being a woman like Bo-Katan with her past seem easy. That pissed me off so much, because it's not. Like, holy shit. I make a comment about Steven Crowder, I get 20 people jumping my goddamn ass over it. She wants to take people in and get people killed to retake a planet because reasons, and no one goes, hey, maybe we shouldn't be doing this. Two guys fight just over a stupid card game. Like, and then Grogu breaks it up. Like, the most mature with it owning your shit character in this whole season was a fucking baby. You know, okay, boundaries and agency Grogu robot pants.
Yeah,
that was amazing. But you know, I was just so the audience was expected, and it's so weird, right? Because if you just take what's there, they really didn't give the audience very much to explain why Bo-Katan was fit to rule. And the same fanboys who lost their shit about Rey were fine with that because she was theirs. And that's the other thing that really frosted me about the whole thing, is that, you know, a strong woman is okay as long as she is pre-existing and makes the primary demographic, meaning, you know, lonely men, comfortable. And that is not the purpose of the Sword Maiden. That's not what the trope is supposed to do.
I mean, you know, I come back to, you know, Red Sonia,
Mm-hmm.
and I am specifically referring to Marvel's Red Sonia, not
Okay.
Robert E. Howard's Red Sonia, because they are very different.
They are very different, yeah.
But you know, one thing I always liked about Red Sonia was that she does have that rule of the goddess saying, look, I'm giving you these powers. Never lay with a man who cannot best you in battle, or you lose this. Which I always found that fascinating. So when I found out that someone, Gail Simone, decided to take that away, I'm like, why?
Yeah, what did that do?
It just lets her whore around, basically. And it's like,
why do we need that? Why is a woman who is physical in other ways automatically a slut? Now, I say this as somebody who that gets assumed about me all the time, right? Because of the redhead stereotypes. So again, that one pisses me off.
Yeah.
And you know, people don't, that's, I mean, go ahead, sorry.
I mean, it's also like with Rogue. The reason Rogue looks the way she does is because she's off limits. It's supposed to be the forbidden fruit.
Right.
And like, obviously, we have Remy, who's like, I don't care. Kill me if it has to. I want you. Yeah. And I love you. So obviously we approve of that. Yes. I will say, after we talked about Rogue and Gambit on a recent episode, the day it went up, Tristan from Nerdette's Newsstand posted a picture of Rogue and Gambit and was just like, oh, they're so great. And I'm like, I know what you were listening to today.
Shout out to Nerdette. We love Nerdette and crew. Great people. But yeah, I mean, and you know, one of the things that's cool about going on Nerdette's Newsstand for me is, you know, I get a perspective on womanhood and what you want to see in media from you, and then I get a very different one from Tristan, and they're all valid. And again, you know, the girly girl is only valid if the Sword Maiden is valid, and vice versa. there needs to be a God, I'm going to drop the D word, diversity in depictions, not just only one thing that is ever okay at any given time. And Star Wars has fallen into the trap of there can only be one sort of female strength. If you don't agree, you hate women. And I have an issue with that. The same reason, the whole full figured is in right now. I grew up in the 90s when it was very, very different. And if you had any, shape to you at all, you were considered fat. If something's on trend, it can go off trend. And that's why I don't want these trends. It is not girl power to be you're the one acceptable type of woman now. That's wrong. That's not feminism. That's the same problem we've always had. Stop this. And that's why I thought Satine and Bo-Katan were so great on Clone Wars. They were very different. You saw Bo's point, wanting to preserve their traditions, right? But ultimately, she was wrong. Choosing violence is not the way. Even Mandalorians have codes on violence that Bo-Katan violated with what she chose to do. And I don't see, first of all, it works so much better when you have two different women playing off each other, because then more people feel like they're represented. I mean, I was like, oh, great. The blonde's the wise, peaceful one. The redhead is the angry, violent one. Fucking stereotype maligned again when Clone Wars first came out. Now that the angry girl power stereotype is cool in the halls of Disney, now it's reversed and the Satine type is completely wiped out in favor of this really cardboard. Do you even find her strong? I don't find Bo-Katan strong. I find her reckless.
No, she has all the trappings of badass, but at the same time, it's in the same way that the low grade bad boy does.
Right.
Where it's like, you've got the leather jacket, you've got the motorcycle, but you're a jerk.
And I mean, they went through all that to save that kid, and then they kill off the dad. I get that Disney likes killing moms, but you killed the dad? Like, all that, it was a badass death, no doubt. It was a great scene. But if you're making these shows for the kid in all of us, because I sit down and I try to watch these things from the, position of an inner 10-year-old. And that would have really upset me. And people freaked out when they killed Mufasa in The Lion King.
And here's the thing, with the way he behaved in Book of Boba Fett, I could not stand him.
The Gatling gun guy.
Yes. Yeah. His name is Paz. I forget his last name.
People don't know that, though. So he's the Gatling gun guy.
So the Gatling gun guy, he tried to kill Din in the Book of Boba Fett to take the dark saber. And I was just like, you're a jerk. I don't like you. But then, at the council meeting, he turns around and he's like, this man saved my son, and therefore I will go into battle with him.
Yeah.
Which it's like,
again, there wasn't enough questioning of whether that was a good idea in that scene. They were trying so hard to tell the audience what to think instead of showing the audience what to think.
Yeah. And it's, in the How to Train Your Dragon books, there's a particular character who he's a bully for the first 10 books, and he's awful, and he tries to kill the main character, and he's been doing that since he was 2 years old. And he's just awful, and he sides with the villains at one point. But then he has this change of heart, and God, those books were way deeper than they deserved to be. And he's like, the reason, I betrayed myself. And that's why it hurt when everyone turned their back on me. And then he turns around and he gives his life for his cousin. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, how you make me care about this character? I hate this. And
let's talk about redemption. Sorry, go ahead.
I had almost the exact same reaction when Gatling gun guy died. I'm like, why am I having a snot lout moment?
Yeah, it was okay. Let's talk about redemption, okay? Because I've had Twitter bros telling me Bo-Katan was redeemed in Rebels. It doesn't.
I didn't watch Rebels.
Okay, there is a really, really juvenile attitude towards redemption out there right now, and I feel like it has to be addressed because it's a problem. Don't make a half a lifetime of mistakes, then do one good thing and it's all better. I mean, these are the same people that hold tweets against me for a decade, right? And they're like, oh, characters redeemed. It's like, on what fucking planet does life happen that way? That is not how it works. When you're notorious for being the reason Mandalore fell, why is anybody gonna, and then they start arguing, but it's not, but it's other things, because they've retconned Satine was just a failure. And I reject that analysis. If Mandalore was functioning fine when she was in charge and it only fell because, the whole thing splintered because her sister was mad at her, that's not a failure of leadership. She was betrayed. And this whole idea that, oh, you do a couple good things and so you're redeemed, or worse, what they're doing in the MCU now, or is trying to redeem characters through torture. That is not how it works. And if we really want to start doing girl power, we have to start showing women making mistakes and making it right. And you don't make one mistake right by doing another good thing.